Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking to the copy chief guru, Kevin Rogers. Kevin, it's great to have you on the show today. Copychief.com. Think community. As you know, I'm a business coach. I work with people who are successful but stuck. I get them unstuck. This podcast is one platform that I like to use to bring on guests that I can provide you guidance to help you get unstuck. And one area that I always see people are stuck in is in their copy, right? In their writing. I think people have such a difficult time writing today, knowing what to say, how to say it, when to say it, especially as we've just walked through many years of COVID and consumer behavior changing. And over the next decade, it probably changing consistently on a pretty consistent basis. So Kevin Rogers, for the past 7 years, his company has helped almost 4,500 businesses basically learn how to copyright to exceed their revenue goals and to convert clients. And so he's here today to talk to us. What I'm going to ask is everybody just take one thing off the shelf that Kevin's going to share and take the others off when you need it. And Kevin, it's great to have you on the show today. Let's talk about what makes great copy.
I would say if I had to say one word, I would say sincerity.
And why is it so and well, let me ask you this. Is it difficult or easy for people to be sincere?
It's hard. It's hard because a lot of times we think we have to manufacture sincerity, which is counterintuitive. Look, it depends on some factors, right? I always say that for small businesses, we have this unfair advantage of that we're able to get messages out quick and be transparent, share struggles, take people into our process and do things in a way that are fluid, and we can have dialogue with the people who respond. And really, if you achieve that, you'll always know how to be sincere and what to say to people to compel them into your business.
Yeah.
Bigger companies have legal teams and they have ad agencies and all these channels that make it much harder to get a sincere message out because 100 people are putting their fingers on it and it takes months to get something out. And so if we're flexible and we're fluid, this can be a real advantage.
Yeah. So let's dive into that. Flexible and fluid, right? And so, let's talk to that person who doesn't even know how to be flexible, how to kind of enter that space of flexibility, because if they can't be flexible, they can't be fluid, right? Well, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And so how do you get yourself into a mindset where you can begin to be flexible, to begin to be fluid, so you can actually put your heart into it to be sincere?
Yeah. Well, look, we have this great advantage now of having these channels accessible to us, the social media channels. And I want to be clear, there's two ways to use social media. Obviously, there's the paid ad platforms that are very effective, and those can be a little less flexible. It can take months for a single ad to prove itself, and you got to be patient and consistent with it. However, the way to get to the right ad is by having real time conversations with people in the same channels. And so if what you want to have is a fluid marketing team and somebody representing you on social media, if not yourself, who understands the kind of questions to ask, conversations to start, and knows how to read that input, that dialogue.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second, because I use the term real time all the time, and I love it because if you look at that of the umbrella of something, and then behind that is active listening and being present and really paying attention to the pauses, the nuances of what someone is saying, even though they're not maybe saying it. And so being real time with someone requires you to get rid of distractions. And like you said, talking to people, understanding what your message not only is, but needs to be based on the person who's receiving it. So let's talk about the receiver for a minute, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so let's talk about the receiver of the message. And so when somebody receives a message, let's just work backwards. What do they need to feel? What do they need to sense? What do they need to, you know, we talked earlier, bring out the pain, but what do they need to feel today?
They need to feel that you hear them.
Mm-hmm.
People want to be heard. Thoreau has that great line that most people live a life of quiet solitude or something like that, where they just feel like they're living in a void, that nobody really hears them, nobody understands them. And when you can break through with a message that speaks to somebody, makes them feel like these people get me. It's like they're reading my diary.
Yeah. And I think
that's the moment.
And what one of the things I see, Kevin, is it requires daily listening, because sometimes those words or the priority of those words to the receiver can change, over a short amount of time. And I'll just give a quick example. When I started my business over 7 years ago, I didn't know that the word stuck was going to stick. And so I knew that I was talking to people who were stuck. But then I didn't even know if it was a real word. I did. And then I started saying, hey, I can help. If you're stuck, I can get you unstuck.
Yeah.
So people liked it. It resonated with them. And so I started changing my messaging with that word. Right.
Yeah.
So talk about how to listen for, what is important, where people, the words, what to listen for so they do feel heard.
Yeah. We can go deep on this. This is a really good topic.
Yeah.
There's actually a system for this. And it goes like this. Basically, I started doing this through email. That's my best channel. By the way, I think email is the best way to communicate with people because it's the most intimate of all digital communication. Think about how you would sit there and scroll Instagram or TikTok, with a friend or your significant other and laugh together at videos, and you probably wouldn't be too concerned about what came up in your feed or things like that, right? But you wouldn't want somebody sitting next to you as you read through your emails. You've got personal messages going on there. You've got different things. And so it's still people read intimately and closely. However, you guys probably all start your email like I do when you're there to answer some emails. First thing I do is start deleting. I look for anything I can delete. And the first thing, if it doesn't look sincere, I delete it. And if I was more diligent, I would be unsubscribing at the same time. But I just want to get rid of all the fat and get into the heart of it, right? Yeah. So we did a program, John, you'll like this. We wanted to launch a new program, but it was a true beta launch. And we wanted to make sure we were speaking to the people who we thought it suited best. And we also, because it was the beta launch, wanted to hear from them what they wanted from such a program so that we could make it very specific to them. The only way anybody could know that we were launching this product was by reading all the way down to the PS of our emails. It was the only place we mentioned it. And we have 48 pages of replies to that PS in those emails. We have those all in a document. And then what we do, I use that all kinds of ways. You can go through and start to highlight certain words. Yeah. You probably would have seen stuck mentioned a million times and went, oh, wow, people are resonating with the term I used. This needs to be featured, right? You can also put it into those fun word softwares that make a word map and you can see which specific words are most prevalent. And so, like you said, listening carefully, you can also kind of systematize that process. And man, you hand that to a copywriter and they know exactly what to do with it. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I wrote a book a few years ago, and a lot of times people will ask me, what was the process behind writing a book? And I'll share that with them. The detail of that doesn't matter right now. But what I always say to them, anybody can, and so they'll say to me, God, I always want to write a book, but I'm not a writer. And I always say the same thing. No one's, take away the Grishams or whatever, but behind every writer is a better copywriter. Like that's really all you need.
Yeah.
And so having a copywriter is golden, right? Because
Yeah.
even the one word one additional word or one less word can make all the difference.
Yeah, for
And so
sure.
can you talk a little bit about the nuances? Because I really believe that, copywriters in the world that you live in is critical because think community, the average person has a attention span less than a goldfish, which is less
Sure.
than 7 seconds.
Right.
And I double majored in economics and journalism in college. And one of the things that I remember learning in journalism, and I graduated, I'm 50, I graduated when I was, 23. And back then it was that the average person read a newspaper for 8 minutes a day. They read the first paragraph, the last paragraph, and the headline. So I don't know what the news stat is, but I would think it's less because people don't read, they skim. And
They
so,
skim, right.
yeah. So how important are the nuances of a writer?
Yeah, it's a great question. They're hugely important. Again, part of it is what tone are you setting? Are you writing in a way that is, look, you want to leave a lot of white space. You want to force somebody's eyes down the page. I write a lot of very long Facebook posts, and I just wrote one the other day. And it got 400 responses and over 100 comments on Facebook, and it was long. It was maybe 1,500 words, and sometimes people will say, I never read long stuff on Facebook, but you forced me to read this. And there's a lot of nuance in that. It's making sure that you're taking people on a journey. And look, when people read something, we're looking for permission to stop reading it, right? Because none of us feel like we have a second of extra time in the day. We don't want to be bothered. We're inundated with data. And so if you really think about what you want to express and tell it in story form in a way that brings them on a journey that they can see themselves in, like those are the nuances, right? That's sort of the big picture of where you want to start with it. Some specific things are simple little word choices you make. First of all, some things not to say. By the way, here's something that might be useful. We're talking about copy. Yeah. I just came up with this. I was teaching some realtors, real estate agents, how to use copy better. And really the 4 essentials it comes down to when you're communicating with somebody in a meaningful way is why them, why you, why this, why now. Like those 4 simple things. Why them, why you, why this, why now? Why should they care? Are they being heard? That's why them. So they've got to see themselves in it. What's in this for me? You know that from journalism.
Yeah.
And then why you? How do you fit into that? And that doesn't mean taking 5 paragraphs to lay out your bio. They just want to read between the lines that you get it and that you've been there. And then why are we talking about this? And why is it important right now? Why is it relevant? Right.
Right.
And so some words, though, that hurt, conversations are words like just. I hate the word just, John.
Yeah.
We do this all the time. And this is a word that you'll use all the time and then just delete it every time you go to use it, especially when you're writing. That's the beauty of writing is you have a chance to edit, right?
Right.
So for instance, something we all say in business is we're following up with somebody. Hey, just wanted to follow up.
Yeah.
You didn't just want to follow up. You're following up.
Right.
And when somebody reads just wanted to do something, it feels flaccid. It feels a little desperate. It's all about you.
Yeah.
You could simply instead say, reaching out to ask, right? I'm reaching out to ask, did you get my last email? Because we only have a short amount of time, whatever it is, right? Another big one is at least when you say things like, well, at least this or at least that sort of indicates that you're okay with compromise and that they should be okay with compromise. And you always want to be looking forward, not in compromise, right? And so instead you could say something like that way, or best case scenario again. So you're framing what could be, not what we're settling for.
Yeah.
One more that I think everybody should just never say is, I'll be honest, or honestly. That's a killer, because every time somebody says to me, I'll be honest, I think, are we just starting now?
Right. Right.
What's been happening until this moment?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. I love that. I'll throw out a word that they say is very productive. There's a study that was done in 1978. Have you heard of this one? A Harvard professor did a study on the word because, and how powerful the word because is, that it really increases conversions rate like 30-some%.
That's
so
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I love that you nailed that. Gary Bencivenga is widely regarded as maybe the best copywriter that ever lived. And he said that's the most important word in marketing is because.
Yeah. Oh, good. Has he written any books? I don't know him.
No, he didn't write books, but he does have an expensive course. When he retired, he invited 100 people and he shared everything he learned over his career. And that's available as a course. It's like $5,000, but worth it if you're ready to invest.
Wow, that's very cool. All right, good. So let's talk. I want to go back for a minute and talk about storytelling, because one of the things you had talked about is, tell things in story format so people can see themselves in the story. We're giving kind of formulas and models today. What's the formula for a good storytelling?
Yeah, the simplest one is 4 parts. Identity, struggle, discovery, and result. And John, I actually took this from my days as a stand-up comedian. I toured for a decade doing stand-up in clubs. And when I got into copywriting, I was looking back to what was effective in comedy in the parallels. And I thought, the most important joke a comedian tells is the first one and the last one. And the first one is so important because you're establishing persona immediately. And so the formula for comedy is identity, struggle, discovery, surprise. Because surprise is why we laugh. We didn't see that coming, didn't expect that. It's a knee-jerk reaction to laugh. But we don't want to trick people or mislead people in marketing, so we change it to result. And so an example is, I call this the 60-second sales hook. And by the way, that's a free book anybody can get at 60secondsaleshook.com. But I say that because the pitch for that book is a 60-second sales hook. I would say, hey, John, hey, my name's Kevin Rogers. I'm a former dead broke stand-up comedian. It turned copywriter. And for years, I struggled to understand what makes people sit up and pay attention. Then I discovered a simple 4-part storytelling formula that exists in every comedian's first joke. And I turned it into what I call a sales hook formula that it can be delivered in 60 seconds or less in any form. And so if you want to, and then you call to action. So if you want to find out what it is, enter your email below, right? And so that's the 60-second sales hook. Identity. And in my case, all wrapped up in one. I'm Kevin Rogers, former dead broke stand-up comedian. Dead broke's all I got to say about the struggle. We can picture that. Not fun, kind of fun, not ultimately fun. And then what did I discover? And this is where you want to show people you in the lab a little bit. I picture you got your beakers foaming around you, and you got your lab coat on. Show them that you've done some work, that you became obsessed with a thing that you found people were struggling with and solved it. And then what is the result? I forgot to add the result. And then normally I say, since then I've taught it to countless marketers who have used it to boost their conversions by XXX, whatever. Right. Yeah. And then, so just quickly. And so identity, struggle, discover. And by the way, a lot of people get hung up when they try this. If they say, well, my struggle isn't their struggle. I didn't go through that. And the simple fix to that is just use the struggle of your best customers. Yeah. Make it about them, and just qualify yourself as an expert in what you do to help them.
I learned about you through a friend of mine, Karen Larson, who is I don't know if you know Karen.
No, I don't.
She's a branding specialist. And so she said, "Oh, you gotta check out Copy Chief, the podcast, just everything he does."
Awesome.
So I saw I've been following you, and I gotta interview this guy for my podcast because your content is such quality. Think Community. There's a podcast it's called Copy Chief Radio, hosted by Kevin Rogers. We found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and YouTube. Give everybody a quick visual of that so they can see it. For those who are watching it, on the web.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. What's one thing you have learned from all the guests that you've interviewed on your podcast and their stories?
That's a great question. I'll tell you what, my first podcast, I think was my best because it had one question in it. It wasn't the whole podcast, but I would end it with the same question to everybody I interviewed. And I was talking to leaders in marketing and copywriting. And the question was, what's the one thing you've done in marketing that produced the most surprising result?
Good question.
And it was great because you think about it, those are the nuggets where you thought it was going to do great and it completely tanked, and what you painfully learned from that, or something you threw out on a whim and it exploded and might have changed the whole direction of your business. You never forget those things. And give me that moment. Like, what was the thing you did?
Yeah.
And so all the answers to that question through 150 episodes or whatever of that show were the best. But I guess the overarching thing that I get is what I love about entrepreneurs and anybody who finds their way into this wacky world of specifically direct response marketing. There's no two identical paths in. You don't go to college for this. Usually people start it as a need to grow their business, but man, that fire that gets us through the long days and the lonely moments of being a business owner, that just never stops inspiring me when I hear those stories.
I love it. All right, quick speed round. You ready, Kevin?
Yeah.
All right. Book that's had the biggest impact on you.
Essentialism by Gary McKeown. Greg McKeown.
I love that book. Yeah, Greg. It's a great book. Yeah. My business coach referred that to me years ago. I loved it.
It's one I go back to regularly, which I don't often do.
Yeah. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
There's no greater freedom in life than allowing other people to have their own experience.
It's great. And finish this sentence. One person, for the one thing that every person should do to enhance their copy and their message is?
Do it regularly. If you can communicate, you can write. You can speak it into a voice recorder and run it to Temi for 10 cents a minute, and you have copy then that you can work with.
I love it. Think Community. We talked about learning something today that would get you unstuck. Kevin shared a ton of stuff. I think one takeaway for me that resonated is, and there was so many and so much detail, but goes back to really one of the first things you said, which is find your sincerity in everything that you do. And I think that is great. Think Community. If Kevin can help you, please reach out to him, copychief.com. Kevin, tell everybody who your ideal clients are and how they can connect with you.
It's twofold. Anybody who wants to learn how to write more effective sales messaging for their business, whether they want to be a freelancer or improve their business, or companies who are looking to build copy teams, whether they want to start with one copywriter, or like we just signed a deal with Grant Cardone's company to build a team of 20 copywriters with them. That's what I love to do is connect those two paths together so they can go off and do great things.
I love it. Kevin, thank you. Think Community. If Kevin can help you, please reach out. Kevin, this has been awesome. I appreciate you taking time and sharing your wisdom today. Have an awesome day, everybody. Thanks, Kevin.
Enjoyed it. Thanks, John.